Hi everyone, Diane here. Welcome to my Cairo studio. If you're looking for a gentle, slower-paced video with plenty of easy, fun ideas for your relaxation, you are in the right place. I've unearthed a video for you which I know you'll enjoy and which I had a lot of fun with because it simply turns painting upside down and stands it on its head. Find out what I mean and watch with me now turn negative into positive with my funky birds and flowers. So let's get started. You do need to start, don't you, with a kind of mood setting activity when you start to paint. I think it's a good idea. It gets you into the right frame of mind because very often we're not in the right frame of mind. My hands are so cold. So today I'm going to paint something like this. And you might say, what's this? And I might say, I don't know, it's a painting. So let's find out. I'm going to be using Kuretake paints because they are nice and intense and they show up really well on the camera. So that's one of my reasons for choosing them. The other reason is that they make nice mixtures and they're not very expensive. I know the price has gone up lately, but still they are, I think, worth it. Works out at about $1 for each one of these little pans, and they last a long time, actually. I've had these probably coming on for a year now. So what I've got here is I've swatched out some mixtures. These are the 4 basic colours that I'm going to use. That is to say yellow, orange, sap green, kind of lime green sort of colour, and something approaching phthalo, green, blue, whatever, plus, so those are kind of all analogous. They're all on the green side, really, or yellowish side. And then one complementary colour, which is this red here. And just to check, to make sure this is going to be harmonious, what I usually do is I mix a little bit of each of them with each other. And by the time I've done that, if I've only got colours which I think are harmonious, then I'm set to go. So that's okay. The worst colour that I came up with was this grey, which is what you get when you mix orange and blue. This is a lovely green, which is this green plus this. And these orange shades and everything are what you get when you mix them. So you don't need to worry about the colours going muddy. Basically, this is going to be the sketch that I'm going to use to do the next step in this when we get there. So that's irrelevant, but we'll talk about that later. And then I've got 2 little pads here of Meaden watercolor paper. I'm going to do 2 of these at the same time, one on cold press and one on hot press. This is the cold press. This is the hot press. And so this is hot press being smoother. This is cold press being a little bit more textured. And then I will put the paints over this side. And with a reasonably big brush, this is my palette that I'm using to mix colours on if I want to mix them, but I'm not really going to do much mixing. I'm going to take a reasonably big brush. This is a Drawwell number 11. And I've got 2 pots of water like this. That's one, it's a mason jar. And I've got 2, one for rinsing and one for picking up clean water. But what I do in order to preserve my water, keep it clean, when I want to change colours, say I've got some blue on here and I want to go to yellow, first of all I wipe it off onto a towel to take most of the paint off, and then I rinse it in, first of all the dirty one and then the clean one, and that way the clean, this one, will stay clean for forever really, because most of the paint has come off either here or in the first dish of water. So that's what I do there. So now to do this painting, the first thing we're going to do is do a loose wet in wet background. And so it's up to you what colours you use. This is, as I said, my palette of choice for today. So I'm just going to do the same on each one, and you'll be able to see the difference in the way they work. So I don't have any particular plan. I'm just going to put paint on the paper. And the idea with this design is that, first of all, you're going to put some lightish colours on, like this. And then you'll come in with some darker tones. And if we watch what happens with the two different papers, you'll see. Now, the reason for perhaps choosing hot press as against cold press is that the pen that we're going to use will work slightly more smoothly on the hot press than on the cold, because there's less texture, so the pen will run more smoothly. So we're just covering up all the paper, all that nice, untouched, intimidating paper with paint. And should we just put green down the bottom here? There's no set way of doing this. This is your painting. This is just the way I'm going to do it. You can see already on the cold press, it's more beginning to mingle. On the hot press, there's a certain amount of sitting on the surface. So now I'm going to pick up some of this nice blue, and we'll add some areas of that. It's a good idea to sort of go over the edge, so to speak, sort of take it to the edge of the paper. Don't just put blobs in the middle. That will look a bit weird. And the reason why you need these dark areas is because you're going to put patterns on top, and it's quite nice to have some really dark, intense areas that you can put lighter things on top of. And it's up to you what you do. There's no rules on my channel. No rules at all. So that's that. And then you're going to let it dry. Only because you can't do anything until it is. So you can either put a hairdryer on there and speed up the whole process. And see how it's soaking in a lot more, I think, on the cold press paper. So you might want to add a little bit more to keep that strength. You can either use a hairdryer or, one of those drying tools or whatever you happen to have, or just let it dry of its own volition. Up to you. I'll probably put the hairdryer on because just to speed things up a little bit this morning. Okay, so I'll do that and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so that's now dry, and the two of them are looking quite different. This has got lots more straight lines. I added a little bit of red, which I hadn't put on before. This has got lots of blurry lines. It doesn't really matter very much because that's mostly going to be covered up in the next stage and the stage after that. So the next thing that we're going to do is put some shapes like this. This is just circles, little lines. You can do little crosses as well if you want, or whatever, little chevrons like that. And we're going to put some shapes like that over the top of this base layer. And I'm going to use a fairly small brush to do this. You could also use a pen, or you could use watercolor brush pens. And I think the best thing to do is to use shades of the same colours that you've already started with, and then you're just going to embellish in areas on top of what's underneath. And you can get subtle, or you like this, you can do subtle, or you can do, really contrasty. And one of the good things about these paints is that they're semi-opaque if you use little water. So you'll get the opportunity for yellow to show up on green, for example, whereas if you were using light watercolor, completely transparent watercolor, you would find that it didn't cover at all. So, and that's the way that works. So that's why Kuretake is actually quite useful for this kind of painting, which is a sort of mixed media kind of thing. So we just take our time and put lots of texture, basically, is what you're doing. You're texturizing, oops, there's a hair coming out of that brush. Texturizing your background. And you can, let's put some dark red on here. And just take your time. It's a sort of, what's the word? Relaxing, that's the word. It's a very popular word, that, isn't it? Relaxing. And sometimes I don't know if I know what it means. I just need to relax. We didn't used to say that much. I was just sort of reflecting on growing up, and thinking about what we used to say to one another. Somebody came across a video, which I haven't watched, that said, if you don't know the words, you can't talk about something, you can't even experience it if you don't know the words to describe it. And that's one of the frustrations when you live in a foreign country and you can't talk properly to people because you don't speak their language. I'm going to do some circles in green. So, yeah, I'm using a very fine brush. This is a size 0, which I don't use usually because when I get down to this kind of amount of detail, I tend to pick up a pen. But for this particular kind of design, a brush is more organic and perhaps a bit more interesting, the shapes it's going to give and so on. I'm not trying to make it super perfect. And you can do whatever this looks like birds' footprints to me. It's like birds' footprints in the snow, I'm doing trying to do more or less the same on both paintings. The one with cold press paper and the one with hot press. Birds in the snow, green snow. And let's have some more yellow up here, like I did on the cold, hot pressed. I hope some of you have got hold of some of the cold, hot pressed. I'll get that right in a minute. I always say Patreon when I mean Pinterest, and I keep saying cold pressed when I mean hot pressed. So put some more of those there. And maybe I'll make a darker orange. bit more red, perhaps, to make a darker orange. And we can put, say, for example, some little lines here. This is very good practice for your brush strokes, I think, you know. Practicing using, controlling the amount of water on your brush and a relationship between paint and water, and so that it becomes automatic. You don't want to have to think about these things too much, do you? You want things to become automatic, I think, so that you can just paint. Let's do some more circles over here. If you are constantly saying to yourself, oh, is that the consistency of tea or coffee? Is that the consistency of milk or cream? I mean, I can't be doing with that. I have to just do it by intuition or having just the feel for it. And if it's not quite right, then you correct it. But you don't. I can't be doing with all of that. No, I'm sorry. I'm not that kind of person. Okay, so I need some more orange. In here. I'm sure this one's going to turn out completely different from the last one, which was my first one. Okay, and we need a little bit more small dots here. And while you're doing this, you're not trying to control anything. Don't even look at it. Just do it. And then when it's done, then you can look at it. And then you can say, well, maybe I need a little patch of dark ones here. Okay, so I think that's probably enough. So I'm going to put that brush aside for a minute and dry this. So that's dry now, and for the next stage, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a white pen. This is a Artistro extra fine tip, a 0.7 millimeter water-based ink pen, and you prime it by giving it a bit of a pump like that. And the reason I'm going to use this is so that I can see what I'm doing. And I've got a couple of designs in mind. This is what I did before. And then I've got this idea here. So basically what you're going to do is to follow your own imagination. And, I just need to straighten up the camera a little bit. It does fall over. There we go. So these are two separate ones. This isn't one design, although it could be done as one design. And then you'd have a diptych, wouldn't you? So what we're going to do is we start off drawing some leaf shapes, let's say, for example. And you're going to keep them quite big because you want them to show up the beautiful things underneath. So I think I will probably do this as one big painting. It's still not very big, is it? But if I do it like this, then it'll have, I don't know, it'll just be different. So we'll put some leaves. And excuse me if I sound completely incoherent. Hopefully the sugar that I've just consumed will kick in a minute. And I was going to put a little birdie in the middle. So let's put a little birdie in here. And maybe we'll put one over this side too. It's harder to... I'm not very good at drawing them the other way around. I'm obviously a right-handed drawer. So I'll put the tail up there. You can correct that when we get to it. And then we need some flowers. And some more leaves coming down from above. And a flower over here, perhaps. And maybe we want a nice, long leaf. You could do this drawing part in pencil, but it would be very hard to see what you were doing. And I'm doing it really slowly so that the ink doesn't cease to run. And this pen does seem to work quite well on the rough paper. We don't want the shapes to be too small. Because the next step, we have to go round them. So if we make them small, then it's going to be really fidgety. And in between, we'll just put some circles as fillers. Maybe we'll have a, come on, draw. Flower here. If I can get the pen to work. I think we've more or less filled up our space. Need another one down here, perhaps. Oh yes, I didn't put a big leaf. Right, so that having been done, now the next step is to go to our white, and I'm going to use the Kuretake white, and we just put some water onto the little pan, and then we're going to do what they call, this is a really good example of negative painting. So we're going to paint white all over the outside parts of our design. So covering up or seeming to cover up. But parts of it will sort of peek through. And you need to do this reasonably lightly. That is to say, don't press too hard because you don't want to lift what's underneath. So you just stroke the paint on top, going as close as you can to the lines that you just drew. But as much as possible, not disturbing what's underneath. So we just go around our fillers. And it doesn't matter if it lifts a bit. That really doesn't matter at all. When it's dry, you won't even really see it. I was thinking this would make a very good design idea for things like Christmas cards. I think we could do something with Christmas trees and snow. And go over his legs. Around that flower, around that leaf. If you want to, you could use a smaller brush than I am. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I just thought it probably would be best if I covered the ground reasonably quickly, but you don't need to rush. Oops. Bound to make a mistake sooner or later. This is the point at which, this is the teenage stage. And you think, my God, what have I done? But that's okay. You just keep going. So that's the one on the hot press paper. And now we're going to try the cold press and see if there's any difference. I'm suspecting that it might be that the paint lifts less. It might have sunk in a bit more. But on the other hand, it might be just exactly the same. You could use other kinds of white paint than this. If you want a more opaque effect, you could use white gouache. Winsor & Newton do a good one. So do other manufacturers. Or you could use P.H. Martin's bleed-proof white. That would probably do a good job too, but I thought I would stick with the Kuretake for this because I haven't really used their white much. And I thought it deserved to get out of the box and see the light of day. I paint over the legs of the bird because we probably put them back in afterwards. Of course, the result that you get after all of this effort is going to be, will vary hugely depending on lots of things, like how thickly you put the white paint on and how much negative painting you do. In other words, how big your shapes are. But we're not finished yet because there's another stage after this. Actually, a couple of stages if you like. I'll go over that, I think. And yes, you can modify it as you go along. Two big leaves. That was a flower. And then there's that bit there. Okay. Right, so there we are, and now that needs to dry. So now it's dry, and I'm going to move this one out of the way for the minute, and we're going to work on the hot press one to start with. And I think you could do lots of things. You could come in with more white, or you could now perhaps use some black. So I think I'm going to use my Tombow black brush pen, and I'm going to use some thick and thin lines and come in here and enhance what I've done and see where that goes, because I honestly don't really know at the moment where it's going to go, because strangely enough, I haven't actually done this particular painting before, so it's all a matter of exploration. And I do like these pens. I like the fact that you can press fairly hard and you get a lovely thick line, and then you can lift up and you get a thin line. So you have a very nice variety of shapes of line, which is really good. And it makes lovely circles, so you can put more circles here. You can go round using the point and go around your dots to enhance them and give them more depth. And you can do all sorts. So that's enough for there for the minute. We come down from up here, go around this leaf. And this one. That's come out really nicely. And then this filler shape, we call this. And then the bird that I felt a little unhappy about as I was drawing him, because I realized how awful I am at drawing what I would call left-handed, that is to say the other way around. But we'll see. That's okay. And then we have a flower here, just a little bit behind him. Another leaf. I was watching somebody yesterday, a young woman, same age as my daughter, who had taught herself to paint in watercolor, and having, as she put it, mastered the art, which I would say was perhaps a little premature, after 3 years, or 2 years actually, of practicing, she decided she was bored with it and she was going to go off and learn to paint in oil instead. And after a year of doing that and having mastered the art, she'd got bored with that, and she decided that she was going to go off and start writing books. And it's interesting, isn't it? I used to be like that, always wanting to do something else, afraid I was going to miss something if I didn't do something else, so not concentrating on anything for long enough to get the best out of it. And made me think, because my first feeling was, oh, yeah, I painted in oils for quite a while, maybe I should pick that up. And then I thought, I don't know about that. I've got other things I would sooner do. If I'm not going to paint in watercolor, which I am, then the time that I'm not spending painting, I want to spend doing other things than art. For example, spinning. I enjoy that. That really is a relaxing thing for me. Okay, so we'll put some dots on some of these filler spaces. Space fillers. Okay, so we'll probably come back to that in a minute with some white. And now we have this one. What do you think anyway so far? It's quite interesting, isn't it? This one, are we going to do the same? No, we're not. We'll do it with white. I think I have a Posca pen here. That one might work better than the Artistro one. And I'm going to do something slightly different here. I will go around the outside edges of them, but also what I'm going to do is draw more patterns into the white. So we can fill some of the spaces with more white, and we can draw in our stems and things with a bit more white, and it will give a different effect. We can also sharpen up our blobby edges where we haven't quite got it right. And this gives a rather ethereal look, completely different from the one where we come in with the black lines. So we could have a sort of shower of circles of different sizes, different angles, a shower coming down here. Keep going, perhaps. Just go around these odd shapes. So what we're doing here is together learning a technique that is fun to do, practicing our control of water, control of the brush strokes, control of colour, working with a limited palette of just 2, 4, 5 colours plus white and black. Blending, mixing, designing a floral motif, overlapping, and remembering the sort of guidelines, really, not so much rules as to for layout. You know, when you're putting this design on before you start to paint the background, remembering to have a variety of different shapes and sizes, some with simple outlines, some with complex outlines. Make sure some of them go off the page, like this and this, and this, so that you engage with all four sides of the paper. And yeah, some simple outlines, some more complex outlines. So this would be complex, and that's probably, and these are simple. Have a variety of those. So we're just bringing these more into focus by drawing around the outside edges. And as I said, coming in with our bubbles. And we put a nice kind of pattern of those. And then another thing you can do is you can do parallel lines over the white. Like that, to make a background. And you could have lines coming in from the sides, like this. And you can put solid circles and dots. And your hand goes dead. Yes, and solid circles here, perhaps. Maybe some dots on this one. Okay, I'm going to give my bird an eye. There we go, and some feet. I'm going back to this one. And we can do the same, exact same thing here. It's a little bit easier because it's smoother paper. So actually it works a bit quicker. The ink flows a bit faster. So that's a good thing, really. And we can come into our designs over here and add some white. You could add gold as well, if you wanted to. Yeah, and we can have our parallel lines. Hello, Oriole. Cat is coming in for his third breakfast. So there we are. And you can do things like this as well, where I've got little loopy things going around the outside edge of that circle. You can do that with the white if you want. You could do that. You can do anything. Put some dots on this one, I think. So there we are. I think I've probably exhausted my hand. So we have what you could call a diptych, because those two do join together to make one bigger painting. Or you could say we've got two separate ones and they are different. If I hadn't have done one in ink, black ink, but I'd done it the same, I would have probably had something that was a bit more of a matching pair. But on the other hand, if you were to decide that you liked them and you said, I'm going to frame those, the two of them side by side in the same frames but with their slightly different atmospheres would actually make quite a nice pair. And also you will find as this dries by tomorrow, it'll look a bit different. And I'll just remind you of where we started with this one. That, once it had settled, became much more delicate, I would say. And yeah, we've got more or less the same kind of colour theme going on there. So those two would make a nice pair as well, being as I use the same technique. But this technique is also interesting, gives a much more vibrant sort of look, much stronger. And these ones are pretty and fun and easy and delicate and great to do. I think you'll enjoy that. Give it a try. If you've got the Kuretake set, you've got everything you possibly might need in there, including the white. So you just need a largish kind of brush for your washes and a smallish kind of brush for the details, and then a medium-sized brush for the filling in of the negative painting in white. So don't forget to give us a like and subscribe, turn on notifications, and if you feel like joining us and supporting us in our endeavours to make the world a more artistic place, do consider joining us on Patreon or here on the YouTube membership, starting from $3 a month. And there are perks involved. You get certain things and you get my love, and, you know, it's all feel good stuff, isn't it? So I'll let you go and I'll see you again soon, everybody. Take care. Bye for now.